Hey there, friends and enemies. Jopo here again, and today I want to go over the top 5 commanders I want to build decks around from the Avatar the Last Airbender set in Magic the Gathering, which drops tomorrow. And keep in mind, I don't play CEDH or anything like that, so my power level might be a little bit lower than some of the people watching this video. And also, I am looking for playstyles that I personally enjoy, so there might be other commanders that are very good. Like, I think Wan Shitong is going to be a very good commander in certain hands, but I just don't want to play mono blue, and so that's why it doesn't make the list. So if any of the commanders that I choose aren't for you, that's fine. Let me know why you think they don't make good commanders. But if I missed any, if there are any commanders that you feel are underrated, definitely let me know in the comments down below. Anyway, starting off, we have Boomy Unleashed. I almost didn't add this one because it feels almost like too obvious. For a green and a red and 3 colorless, you get a 5/4 legendary human noble ally creature with trample. When Boomy enters, Earthbend 4. So essentially, turn one of your lands into a 4/4. When Boomy deals combat damage to a player, untap all lands you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. Only land creatures can attack during that combat phase. Essentially, what you're going to want to do is Earthbend as much as possible with this deck, and I think it could be very good. Having second combat phases can spiral very quickly. You can do a lot of damage, especially if your whole deck is built around making land creatures, and all of them will be able to attack. So just remember that Boomy will not be able to attack. So they're like only land creatures can attack, unless you find a way to turn your other creatures into land as well. They're not going to count for your additional attack. So that's very important. However, if you're able to, like, you untap all your lands, you can also defend with them and all that kind of good stuff. So you don't have to, like, attack with every single creature you have. You could wipe people out very quickly, but it's just something to keep in mind. And I think it could be very strong if you are able to build the deck correctly. And I think a deck with not a lot of creatures but filled with lands that are able to attack could be hilarious. And I think also would solve a lot of problems with regards to, like, deck building for a lot of people who don't necessarily find the right balance between land, creatures, and spells and all that kind of good stuff. So we'll see, but I do think that's a really good commander that a lot of people will be looking to build. Up next, we have Katara, the Water Tribe's Hope, and this one I think is a little expensive. It might not be as good. I just was very curious, and I do like white-blue decks specifically, so I think this one could be pretty solid overall. It costs 2 blue, a white, and 2 colorless for a 3/3 with vigilance. When Katara enters, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. Waterbend X. Creatures you control have base power and toughness XX until end of turn. X can't be 0. Activate only during your turn. While paying a waterbend cost, you can tap your artifacts and creatures to help. Each one pays 1 mana. So the reason I think this could be effective is blue is easily able to generate a lot of artifacts. And so essentially what you would be wanting to do is generate a bunch of artifacts to pay for your creatures, bring in some, hopefully maybe a bunch of, like, small white creature tokens. Like, you don't have to have big creatures, because if you're able to waterbend 5, 10 in a turn and really juice up your creatures, you're going to be doing a lot of damage. Just keep in mind, it only works on your turn. So if you are sending everything you got, you are going to be susceptible to counterattacks. So leave something for defense. That's going to be something to keep in mind. Obviously, Katara herself has vigilance, so that's not going to be much of a problem. But I do feel like this is one of those strategies that's going to be very, like, you're going to have to attack pretty consistently in order to make use of it. And maybe white-blue isn't the best for that, but I do think it could be a combination that catches people off guard for sure, especially if you're able to generate a lot of tokens, artifact tokens specifically, in order to waterbend a high amount. So we'll see. I do think this is one of those cards that with the right deck could be interesting. It's not going to be insanely high power level or anything like that, but I think would be a relatively unique deck. And I think that's very important because for decks I'm looking to build, I do like them to have like some situations where they do things that other decks just simply are not doing. So anyway, moving on, we have up next Toph the First Metal Bender. I actually pulled this card. I'm very excited to check it out for sure. For a white, green, and a red and a colorless, you get a 3/3 legendary creature human warrior ally. Non-token artifacts you control are lands in addition to other types. They gain the ability to tap for green. They don't gain the ability to tap for green for mana, so keep that in mind. At the beginning of your end step, Earthbend 2. Target land you control becomes a 0/0 creature with haste. That's still a land. Put 2+1/+1 counters on it. When it dies or is exiled, return it to the battlefield tapped. So, this is again similar to the last command, similar to Katara, who I was talking about. This would be a very similar strategy, but just handled in a much different way. It's almost like a combination of Boomy and Katara for Toph. So essentially what you're going to be doing is all of your non-token artifacts are going to be lands. You're going to want to generate a bunch of those. Those are then going to be turned into creatures through earthbending, only one per turn unless you have multiple sources of earthbending, which you would probably want to do in this deck. And then essentially you would be turning a bunch of non-creatures into creatures at the end of the day. And then if they get destroyed, no big deal. You return them whenever, return them to the battlefield tapped if they get destroyed or exiled. So I do think that's, solves a lot of problems with deck building. I think doing something like this, if you can find enough cards to synergize. The problem with bending is that it's very reliant on Avatar-specific cards. So you're going to have to be creative with the synergies for non-Avatar cards because obviously the cards from other sets are not going to have bending. So you're going to want to have as much earth bending from this set in this deck as possible. So I think that's going to be a little tough to pull off, but it could be very, very interesting if you do so. Moving on, though, we now have Sokka, Tenacious Tactician. This one I was on the fence about initially, but as I've looked into it, I think it could be a lot of fun. You have a white, red, blue, and a colorless for a 3/3 legendary creature human warrior ally with menace and prowess. So whenever you cast a non-creature spell, the creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Other allies you control have menace and prowess as well. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. So essentially what you're going to do is a cantrip deck with a go-wide strategy that will try to essentially buff up your creatures for specific turns. Essentially with menace and prowess, you will be getting through a lot of attacks and a lot of attacks with higher numbers than I think people expect. If you're able to cast 2-3, because none of these abilities say you can only do them once per turn. So if you cast 3 non-creature spells in a turn, that's 3/3 white ally tokens, and then other allies you control have menace and prowess, so those 3 spells would also give your creatures +1/+1 until end of turn, so that'd be +3/+3 for a lot of them, and I think that could be very interesting. Now, I think this is the type of deck that, again, is going to be more for fun and flavor than power level, but at the end of the day, you could do some very interesting things. Throw a lot of ally creatures into this deck. You could really lean on the non-creature spell aspects. Put a lot of creatures in here who are able to copy and double your spells as well, or allow you to cast them twice. So I do feel like that would be very, very interesting. And I think this is maybe one of the more underrated commanders, especially for more casual pods. I think this could be very, very good. But we'll have to wait and see. I do think this is a interesting one to say the least. But at number 1, I think this is the strongest one on my list, but also the one that I'm most looking forward to building, and that is going to be Fire Lord Zuko. For a red, white, and a black, you get a 2/4 legendary creature human noble ally with Firebending X, where X is Fire Lord Zuko's power. Okay, whenever you cast, whenever this creature attacks, add 1 red mana. The mana lasts until end of combat, or X red mana, whatever the Firebending number is. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, and whenever a permanent you control enters from exile, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. This is interesting because I do feel like a exile-focused strategy could be very strong. This is a very inexpensive commander at 3 mana with a color combination that I think could pull off a lot of really interesting abilities. Now, again, this is not going to be one that I think a lot of other people are running. I don't think it's the most broken commander in the set or anything like that, but I think this is one that could provide the most fun playstyle if you are able to synergize this deck with enough ways to cast spells from exile to exile spells and recast them and all that kind of good stuff. Now, there are some other commanders that I considered putting on this list. Again, like I said, the mono-colored commanders, I'm not necessarily sold on, just because I don't enjoy mono commander decks all that much outside of my Sephiroth deck, to be honest. And then the Avatar Aang is another one that I would love to build, but 5-color decks just give me all sorts of problems when I try to play them. So that's why I really like Fire Lord Zuko. Again, I feel like some of the cards that I'm mentioning today are a bit underrated. But again, keeping in mind that I don't play at the highest power level, so some of these may end up being more casual, but like high casual decks, if that makes sense, where they're strong in casual formats, but then once you go to like high level play, they really fall off very hard. There's a lot of cards that are like that, and I think that's something that one of the reasons power level is so hard to like wrap your head around at times is because it's all relative, right? If something is some things can be really strong relative to like weak cards, but then really weak relative to strong cards, and in the middle they don't do a lot at all. So it's just interesting to me, and I'm very curious to see what everyone else thinks. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like the video as always, comment, subscribe. Have a good one, and I'll catch you all later.